When you saw
Um,
bands like the Dolls and Johnny Thunders and stuff like that, were you like, these are guys that I want to emulate? I mean, this is my music. Obviously, you said you were listening to like Sly Stone and all other kinds of music, Nikki, but ultimately you gravitated towards T-Rex, towards the Dolls, towards stuff that
yes.
Aerosmith, obviously early Aerosmith, some of the greatest rock records ever. So, I mean, what made you sort of gravitate towards that kind of music? And
To me, what's great about being young is unless somebody puts them on you on your creativity, there's kind of no rules. So my uncle Don Zimmerman, who was married to my mom's sister, so my uncle Dotted and Sharon, he was the president of Capitol Records, which meant nothing to me. I don't even know what that meant. But he would hear from my grandparents how much I was into music, and he would send me Wings, and he would send me the Beatles and Steve Miller. And he would send me all these Bob Seger, all these records, as I was also getting into other records from friends and stuff. And what I could tell you is because there was no instrument in our house, there was no um, we didn't have a stereo. I mean,
mm,
I had something in my bedroom in our double wide, which was fantastic. But again, it was like, hey, can you turn that down? Because like I got to go to work at 5 in the morning. And I was like, it was like my environment, but I wasn't drawn to the Dolls and that was like my thing, or I wasn't drawn to Supertramp, and that was my thing. I was like, listen to what the Dolls are doing.
mm,
Look what they kind of look like. They looked like they were freaks, but they beat the shit out of you.
right.
Which like Aerosmith, they were like maybe my gateway drug to Aerosmith, which
Yeah,
is like the ultimate. That's my favorite band of all time, always will be.
definitely.
Um, but like listen to like these melodies on Band on the Run and look at these lyrics from like this band. So as I got older, it started to be like I want to be a fist in your face like Sabbath,
Mm,
but I want to have that boogie, that sexiness of T-Rex, but I want to have that outrageous image. Um, but I want it to be cohesive and Cheap Trick for me was like, there it is.
one of the greatest bands ever, no question. So,
Right there it is. I mean, yeah, I probably, I can't think of a band that was more influential on me as a songwriter than Cheap Trick.
yeah, definitely when I listen back to the first record, I hear so much of Treat Chick, obviously. Too Fast for Love, there's incredible references there, and my favorite band of all time, too. But
Yeah.
by the way, I just got word from Will that we have to wrap it up soon. So I'm going to
Okay.
jump ahead a little bit.
Okay.
So, Nikki, talk to me a little bit about how you met Blackie. Was the pre-Motley days, London Sister, meeting Blackie Lawless, the Sunset Strip for you at that point? Were those great memories for you, all the way leading up to
Yeah.
Motley? And then we'll
Yeah.
talk about, obviously the book and everything that you have going on this week with
Yeah.
everything coming out.
I mean, being in Los Angeles, California was an eye opener. This is a place, a city that was a buzz going down on the strip. I remember this like in 1976. I remember buying my 1976 Thunderbird in a used guitar store, even though it was 1976. It was like, I don't know how much it was, a couple $100. And auditioning for bands a lot, Scott, which was a big thing in Los Angeles, especially. I'm sure it was in other cities too. Like I know Twisted Sister was a huge
Huge.
cover band,
Yeah.
and that led into their career. There was a million cover bands in Los Angeles, California. As long as you could play Donna Summer and Led Zeppelin and whatever Hall and Oates,
Right.
like and you kind of looked like you're in a band, like you could get the gig and you could make like a living. And
Yeah.
I was starving to death, man. I was like living on couches. I had never formally learned my instrument enough to go, oh, this is a Hall and Oates song, so I'm going to play it just like Hall and Oates. I go, this is a Hall and Oates song. This is badass. Like, and I would play it my style.
Mm.
Cheap Trick style,
Yeah.
Sex Pistol style, AC/DC style. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm going, I'm giving it some balls, man. And they go, the song don't need balls. It needs to be played like the record. So I could never fit in with the cover band world. And every time I would go, I would say, well, okay, I get it that I'm, not the guy to play Cold as Ice, exactly like Cold as Ice. But hey, I got an album's worth of original material. And I remember hearing literally the words, I don't know why they called me kid, probably because these guys were 25 and I was 20 and they seemed like, ancient. They said, hey kid, there's no money in original music. And I remember leaving that audition and thinking, why is this guy talking about money?
Mm.
Why is this guy not talking about songwriting or about music? So I just started forming my own bands and started playing, and I was putting together people, and I became a band leader by accident. I became the spokesman, the person who, I was the manager, I was the agent, I was the guy to arrange the photo shoots, I was the guy that came up with the logo, all these little different weird bands, and hanging out on the strip. And I met Blackie. Um, Blackie hanging out, and Blackie took a liking to me like a younger brother. And I had met Lizzie Gray and Dane Rage, and we became like the three amigos, and the three of us were, putting music together and writing music, and we hadn't done anything yet. And Blackie needed a bass player, another guitar player, and a drummer. And we went and we auditioned for Blackie. And now remember, it's Blackie's band,
Sure,
not
sure.
Nikki's band. It's Blackie's band. Blackie's the songwriter. Blackie's the boss. Totally fine. You got to, give it to the guy. He's super talented and he's done amazing stuff. So we got the gig. We rehearsed. I remember being like, this is it. Look at our singer. He's a demon. He's a monster. He's a rock star. Look at my guitar player, Lizzie. He's a freak. Look at Dane. He's like a monster god drummer. I mean, I'm a little ratty mess myself. We're going to be the biggest band in the world. That's it. Call my grandparents back at the double wide. Hey, just FYI, going to be playing stadiums next week, all young and stuff. And went to a studio. Blackie had some great songs. They had this song called Mr. Cool.
Mm.
Still, there's been times in my life I was like, God, maybe we should cover that song. So good. Have you ever heard it?
No, I never heard it. Was
Oh
it a
my
Wasp
God.
song, or did it come later than
Yeah,
that?
I don't think he ever recorded it in Wasp. Just look
Mm.
it up. Blackie Lawless,
Yeah.
Mr. Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So we went to a recording studio, and none of us had ever been in a recording studio except for Blackie. He was probably 5 years older than us. And man, we sucked. I mean, we sucked, not Blackie. And he fired us.
Wow. And who would have thought?
And then he went on to, form his own stuff. So that was the beginning of London. And at one point, London, we had Nigel Benjamin, who had replaced Ian Hunter and Mott the Hoople. So it was then Mott for 2 records. Then he did the British Lions. This guy had a 5-octave voice. He looked like a rock star. He was from England, and he joined London. And we were coming up right behind Quiet Riot. It was Van Halen came, left, blew everyone's mind, changed music forever. Then you had Quiet Riot with Randy Rhoads. They're like the biggest band, and rightfully so. And they have 2 deals in Japan, but nobody wanted to sign them, from what I remember, in Los Angeles, because they didn't, like London, look like the Knack, or the Plimsolls, or the Flock of Seagulls, or whatever was in Go-Go's at that time. And record companies are short-minded in a lot of cases. They're like, well, this is what's popular. We got to make our year-end billing, blah, 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 blah. So maybe if we would have cut our hair, done some hand claps, we might have got a record deal, but we weren't. And when the record companies passed, which is a whole other story, some other time we'll talk about that. I went to band rehearsal and I said, look, I got great news and I got a little bit of bad news. Okay, what's the great news? We're the same band. We still look cool. We got great songs. We got a stage set. We got a huge following. And Nigel goes, well, just give me the bad news. I go, the record company passed on us, but it doesn't really matter but he goes, in that case, I quit. That heartbreak was also probably one of the hugest strokes of luck that I ever had, because I was already writing music that would end up being a lot of the Too Fast for Love, because I wanted the band to be more aggressive, and Nigel wanted the band to be more softer. And we were not getting along at all. And when he left, I was stuck with these songs that I was writing, and we tried a little bit more to get London back up, but we could never recover from Nigel's loss and or leaving. And that was the three, then I changed my name legally to Nikki Sixx, and 3 months later I formed Motley Crue.
And the rest is 150 million records sold. So definitely, your uncle probably regretted not signing you at this point. But
he told me that. He told me, because he didn't sign London and he didn't sign Motley Crue. And years later was like, I've worked with everybody from the Beatles on. And there you were, living in my house, writing songs. There you were, annoying me first thing in the morning. Hey, can I call Paul McCartney, or whatever the weird teenage thing that I thought it was all about. But you know what? We kind of talk about this a little bit. It's show business.
Definitely.
It's not show family. Yeah. So how does he go into the board meeting, being the president, and go, okay, listen, guys, I'm going to sign my nephew. And they're okay, fantastic. He's in a rock band that dress like girls, and they sound like T-Rex, but they got a little bit of Queen and Bowie in there. And the guy in the back goes, excuse me, President, nobody's signing bands like that.
Unless they sound like Flock of Seagulls.
And so I wasn't going to get a favor. It's a business. But somebody didn't have the vision to see that music was changing and what was coming. I think we had a lot to do with the change, but we were not totally, responsible for that. There was just a change in the environment. Kids were bored.
Definitely.
Kids were bored. I mean, you listen back to some of that music, then I guess we would call it new wave, and it wasn't that bad. But it wasn't scratching an itch either.